My name is Linnea, and I'm a psychic medium and exorcist from Vancouver, British Columbia. And today I'm back again with my series of things that go bump in the night. Today we're going to talk about demons. What are demons? How they interact with us, and what are the stages of possession? But first, I want to explore a basic chart I made of spiritual hierarchy. As the baseline reference, I always go back to when I'm analyzing what I might be dealing with. First, we have the humans as the baseline. Then we have spirit helpers going all the way up to angels, ascended masters, and the source. Then below we have ghosts, low-level unconscious entities, demons, and all the way to the abyss. Somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the side dimensions, as they don't follow the same hierarchy line, we have the fae and other magical realms that kind of have their own rules. It's important to remember, whatever lower frequency entity is, it will have an exact high frequency counterpart. Basically, angels to demons. I subscribe to the Hermetic theology of as above, so below. So what happens on a microcosmic level is also mirrored on a cosmic level. If we look into a microscope, you see a whole other world of systems that operate on a similar principle to our own earthly and cosmic laws. Everything is a mirror of each other. So using that principle and applying it to what happens on the physical levels also tells us what's happening on the spiritual levels. The universe is about yin and yang, and the balance, what we perceive as evil, I'm sure maybe fills some sort of cosmic purpose that maybe we don't fully understand to the extent. I kind of see it as things like maggots, leeches, slugs. Ugh, I hate slugs. We have the biggest, juiciest slugs on the West Coast, ever. I could really do without ever having any interaction with any of these things, thank you very much. But they do serve a purpose in our ecosystem, whether I like it or not. I'm pretty much insignificant in the big cosmic picture, so wanting or liking these low-level entities is really irrelevant. Demons are conscious, though, and aware beings capable of demonstrating the ability to enter into our 3D reality and causing a lot of trouble for us. Why would they want to do that, you might ask? Well, I'm sure there's many answers to that. I haven't been able to get a demon to go for coffee and have a chat about their agenda yet. But not only my experience, but dating back to the first written recorded word really on demonology, their agenda seems pretty base. Consume, destroy, and survive. Just like any other parasite would. We are a wonderful food source for them. Our beautiful life force energy is just like an all-you-can-eat buffet for these creatures. I always think of those old alien movies where people are put in their slimy pods and the aliens just kind of slowly feast away on them. That's the image I've always had about what they do to people. So who can invite a demon in? Well, anybody can, really. You know, it's not just for people who do satanic rites or practice the occult. But speaking of the occult, I do want to get this off my chest. It kind of makes me a little frustrated, the lack of education. I was reading a lot on how the church performs exorcisms and the signs of someone being possessed were. And one of the things that kept coming up was somebody who practiced witchcraft is somebody who would be possessed. That is absolutely untrue. Anybody who practices the old world religion understands and values and respects Mother Earth, and in the purest form. It's about doing no harm to anyone or anything. It's about respecting the balance of nature. Of course, there's people out there that do practice the dark arts, and they make it, bad for anyone else, but you can't just judge a couple people's bad actions based on a whole group. In reality, any one of us can unknowingly invite a demon or at least low-level entities into our lives. I've actually found that the people that are the most spiritually gifted are the ones more likely to encounter such things. For example, being a sensitive or gifted is like being in a completely black room devoid of light. You're that candle in the room, and it's like moths to a flame. It attracts all sorts of spirits. The light or the life force shines brighter and with more intensity. So for a low-level being, that looks pretty yummy. So how do we invite them in? Well, the invite can be very unconscious. For example, a door was opened through trauma, and the entity saw an opportunity to make a deal with part of you that might have felt hopeless, weak, or scared. Other subconscious invites could be a lot of fighting, tension, chaos in your home, arguments, intense trauma, feelings of sadness, guilt, jealousy, depression, living in a constant state of fear and anxiousness. Basically staying in a low frequency energy for a prolonged periods of time. Another example would be people dabbling or playing in the dark arts. It is not a game. I cannot stress that enough. Next, we'll discuss the various levels of spirit attachment. First is the following. This is where the spirit or entity has not actually attached to the person, but it's in the vicinity. People can feel its presence. Sometimes there's paranormal activity that will happen, unexplained noises, shadows, etc. The next is the shadowing. The spirit still isn't attached, but there's a more intense presence of being watched and followed by that person. They start to develop personality changes. And the final stages are obsession and possession. Now, this is very rare, but this is usually when the demon is now taking over the meat suit. And the person may lose parts of time, have no recollection of terrible things that they did or said. That's because the demon was basically in the driver's seat and their spirit was in the passenger seat. There will be an intensified paranormal phenomenon, voices, possibly hallucinations on their part. They may even start to shapeshift and their personalities start to radically change. They come usually in a time when somebody is feeling at their lowest, and they attach to low frequency energies. And by that I mean living in a constant emotional state of fear, anxiety, ego, materialism in the extreme, addictions, food, drugs, alcohol, gambling, even emotional addictions like being addicted to chaos. There's also familiar demons. These ones follow families and dysfunction in them. They can actually be some of the hardest ones to get rid of. We also may have made a contract in a previous life with one. I'll get into that in other videos though. Again, dabbling in the occult. The Ouija board is a great example. I've seen many cases where the Ouija board opens the doors to some particularly nasty spirits. It's kind of like once you get a low-level spirit attachment, it weakens your immune system and now you're more open to infestation. So how do they attack or infect us? For the most part, it's a lot more subtle than you might think. If we had a full frontal attack, we most likely would defend ourselves right away. They're way sneakier than that. It's like water torture, one drip at a time, slowly eroding away at your spirit. It usually starts off weakening your emotional, physical, and mental states. It starts off with a little voice, kind of like the angel and the devil on the shoulder. You know, subtle whispering in your ear. You're not good enough. You're not worthy enough. You're useless. You're weak. There's no good in the world. You become a constant victim. Then the emptiness starts to build inside you. You search for things to fill that void. Then comes the addictions. As this emptiness grows, it lowers your frequency and you start to spiral into an emotional slump. Then the attachment follows once you're kicked down far enough and long enough. This can be days, weeks, months, even years of constant bombardment. But that's when the real fun begins. Well, for them anyways. Once they have you securely in their grasp, it becomes a cycle of codependency like an abusive relationship. That might sound crazy that a perfectly sane person would be willing to reform a relationship with these things. But in my first video introducing myself in Origins of an Exorcist, I talked about my journey to the dark side. The glamorous spell of the abyss isn't terrifying or horrible at all. It's actually warm and cozy. There's an allure, even a beauty in the dark side. That's why it's likened to an abusive relationship. They give you a false sense of strength and power that only they can provide you. Things start out all wonderful, and then after you're hooked, that's when the mask comes off and you see the real ugly truth of it. By then, it's too late. Your self-worth is shattered and you become codependent on your abuser. They start to create chaos and havoc in your life. Nothing ever seems to go right for you. Constant mishaps, accidents, negative self-talk, sudden illness, suicidal thoughts, negative thoughts that aren't your own, constant loss, harm to yourself and others are all things that will start to snowball whenever there has become a low-level entity attachment. And it also increases our fear response as well. Have you ever noticed our entire structure of our society and culture is based off fear? What we should purchase, how to look, what to act, how to wear. These darker, lower energies infiltrate our daily lives and we don't even realize the connection. We're already programmed to stay in fear mode. A truly free, standing in their power, happy, healthy, vibrant person. These things are truly afraid of that. I really believe when you can understand something, then it can just help dispel the fear. It's part of our human nature, though, to fear what we don't understand. It's kept us alive for thousands of years after all. It can be a useful function, but it also can be very debilitating. This is a basic overview, but the foundation of how demons and lower level entities operate. I hope that these video series will help you find your spiritual warrior side and that you'll learn to become empowered. Once you have the knowledge, then you're better armed and have a greater advantage. We can start to remove fear as it's the exact low frequency energy that these things love to feed on. In my following video on psychic attack and how to defend yourself, I'm going to give you some tips and techniques on how to clear yourself and how to clear your space and how to raise your frequencies. So I hope you enjoyed this topic on demons and we look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.